live as if time were stored somewhere, as if you could return later and collect what you did not use today, as if the body were not already moving quietly toward its end. Most people do not deny death with words. They deny it with postponement, with endless preparation, with the assumption that the real living will begin once the conditions are right. Once work calms down, once the relationship improves, once the fear goes away, once there is more money, once there is more certainty, but the conditions will never be complete, and the fear will never be fully absent. This is not pessimism, it is the ordinary structure of life. Mortality is the fact that cuts through the fog, not because it is dramatic, but because it is final. The mind becomes careless when it imagines unlimited days. It becomes precise when it remembers there are not. Death is not an event you will attend and then return from. It is the boundary around everything you do. So the question is not how to avoid thinking about it. The question is whether you will use the awareness of it to live with reason. You do not control how long you will live. You control how you meet the hours that are given. This is where clarity begins, not with a new plan, not with a list of goals, with the simplest division that the mind avoids until it is forced. What belongs to you and what does not? Your body is not fully yours. Your reputation is not yours. Other people's choices are not yours. The economy is not yours. The weather is not yours. The future is not yours. What is yours is the faculty that meets these things. The judgment that says this is unbearable or this is tolerable. The decision to act with dignity or to act like an animal cornered by desire. The choice to use today well or to spend it in rehearsal for a life that does not exist. Remembering death is not about darkness. It is about measurement. It reminds you to stop treating trivial things as if they were permanent and to stop treating permanent things as if they were trivial. Look carefully at what occupies your mind each day. Not what you claim matters, what actually claims your attention, the irritation you replay, the argument you want to win, the image you want to maintain, the approval you chase, the pleasure you arrange your day around, the complaint you repeat like a ritual. Now apply mortality to it. If you knew you would not be here in a year, would you still carry that irritation like a sacred object? If you knew you would not be here in a month, would you spend a whole morning proving someone wrong? If you knew you would not be here in a week, would you still be negotiating for admiration from people whose minds you cannot command? If you knew you would not be here tomorrow, would you waste tonight filling your mind with noise because silence feels uncomfortable? The mind resists these questions because it senses what they do. They remove excuses. They remove the fantasy of later. They remove the feeling that you can bargain with time. Mortality takes away the false infinite. It leaves you with the real finite. And what is finite can be used. This is where the disciplined person becomes different. Not because they are braver by nature, but because they stop pretending. They stop behaving as if their days are a warehouse. They treat each day as a single unit of life, not in the sense of urgency, but in the sense of responsibility. A day is not something to get through. It is something to inhabit with reason. When you forget death, you drift into a strange form of greed. Not always greed for money, greed for experiences, greed for recognition, greed for certainty, greed for comfort. The mind starts to demand that life be arranged to match its preferences. And when life refuses, the mind calls it unfair. It calls it stressful. It calls it unbearable. But life is not a servant of preference. Life is a field of events, some agreeable, some harsh, many indifferent. Your task is not to secure only what pleases you. Your task is to use everything you are given to practice the only thing that is truly yours, a rational will. Mortality teaches you that most of what you want is not necessary, and most of what you fear is not fatal. The mind confuses discomfort with disaster. It confuses rejection with ruin. It confuses delay with defeat. It confuses uncertainty with danger. But the body can endure far more than the mind claims. And the mind can endure anything if it stops adding judgments that poison the event. You will die. That is not a threat. That is a boundary. Within that boundary, you will experience loss, change, and interruption. You will not control whether someone leaves. You will not control whether an opportunity disappears. You will not control whether your body weakens. You will not control whether your plans are overturned by someone else's decision. So what then? You decide what you will become in response. This is not a slogan. This is the entire work. To be clear, remembering death does not mean you walk around imagining funerals. It means you stop lying to yourself about what is stable. It means you stop building your inner peace on structures that will collapse. It means you stop making your mood dependent on outcomes. It means you stop treating people as possessions. It means you stop treating praise as nutrition. It means you stop treating time as if it were owed to you. You begin to see a hard truth that becomes strangely calming. Nothing outside your will is guaranteed. So if you tie your serenity to externals, you will spend your life bargaining with reality. You will spend your life pleading for the world to cooperate. But if you tie your serenity to virtue, you no longer bargain. You act. You meet events. You endure what must be endured. You do what reason demands. And you stop calling it a tragedy that the world is not arranged for your comfort. You accept the nature of things. Mortality also clarifies relationships, not by making you sentimental, but by making you accurate. You look at the people around you and you realize they are not permanent fixtures. They are not guaranteed to remain, and you are not guaranteed to remain for them. So what follows? Not clinging, not panic, not desperate attachment disguised as love. What follows is a sober attentiveness, a willingness to be just, a refusal to waste your limited time being petty, a readiness to speak honestly when honesty is needed, a readiness to be patient when patience is needed, a readiness to forgive small offenses, not because they are right, but because your time is too valuable to spend it inflaming yourself over what does not matter. You cannot control whether someone appreciates you. You can control whether you treat them with fairness. You cannot control whether someone understands you. You can control whether you speak with clarity. You cannot control whether someone stays. You can control whether you make your conduct something you will not regret when separation comes. Mortality makes this practical. Because regret is often the product of delay. You delay virtue. You delay courage. You delay honesty. You delay reconciliation. You delay doing what you know is right because you assume there is time. Then time closes. And the mind learns too late that it traded what mattered for what was convenient. This is why remembering death clarifies life. It forces you to see the cost of distraction. You are not merely busy. You are spending your life. The hours you trade for trivialities are not returned. And one day without drama, you will realize that your life has been a long series of chosen thoughts, chosen reactions, chosen priorities. Even if you did not choose them consciously, to drift is also a choice. To follow impulse is also a choice. To let fear steer is also a choice. The disciplined person interrupts this, not with panic, but with attention. They ask again and again, in small moments, what is within my control? The event is not. The outcome is not. The past is not. The opinion of others is not. But the present judgment is. The present decision is. The present act is. So they stop making their lives about securing outcomes. They make their lives about practicing sound judgment. This changes how you face fear. Most fear is fear of losing something external. Status, comfort, approval, a person, an identity, an imagined future. Mortality shows you that all externals are already on loan. Your body is on loan. Your possessions are on loan. Your relationships are on loan. Your position is on loan. Even your name, the way people speak it after you are gone, is not yours to own. So fear becomes something else, not an alarm that you are about to lose what is yours, but a reminder that you have mistakenly claimed ownership over what was never fully within your control. If you accept the loan, you use it well. If you pretend it is ownership, you become anxious. Because the world will keep reminding you of the truth. It will remind you through change, through illness, through conflict, through loss, through the slow shifting of everything you thought would stay. A person who remembers death is not shocked by change. They are not surprised by loss. They do not call it unfair that the world behaves like the world. They still feel pain because they are human, but they do not add the second wound of indignation. They do not add the thought, this should not be happening to me. Instead, they say, this is happening. Now what is mine to do? You will notice the difference immediately when you practice it. An insult comes. The first impulse is to defend your image. But death asks, what is your image worth compared to your character? A delay happens. The first impulse is to complain. But death asks, will you spend this hour in agitation, or will you use it to practice patience? A plan breaks. The first impulse is panic. But death asks, will you be the kind of person who collapses when the script changes, or will you meet reality with steadiness? A desire arises. The first impulse is indulgence. But death asks, will you let appetite govern your limited days, or will you govern yourself? This is not about becoming cold. It is about becoming free. The enslaved mind is not the mind that suffers pain. It is the mind that cannot choose its response. It is the mind dragged around by cravings, resentments, fears, and fantasies. It is the mind that says, I cannot be okay unless the world cooperates. Remembering death cuts the chain. It does not remove emotion. It removes the illusion that emotion must rule. Now consider how mortality reshapes ambition. Many people chase achievement as if it will stabilize the self, as if reaching a certain point will make them safe from uncertainty. But no achievement makes you immune to death. No title makes the body permanent. No recognition buys a guarantee of tomorrow. So ambition, when it is irrational, becomes frantic. It becomes the attempt to outrun impermanence by stacking externals. But death is not impressed by stacking. It is not moved by your calendar. It is not delayed by your goals. This does not mean you do nothing. It means you change the purpose of what you do. You work not to secure immortality through accomplishment, but to exercise virtue in action. You build not to prove your worth, but to contribute what reason asks you to contribute while you are here. You pursue excellence, not because it will make you safe, but because it is fitting for a rational being to do things well. Then success and failure become lighter, not because you do not care, but because you no longer confuse outcomes with your moral condition. You judge yourself by what is truly yours, the quality of your will. This also clarifies pleasure. Pleasure is not evil, but a mind that lives for pleasure is a mind that will be easily governed by externals. Because pleasure depends on conditions, and conditions shift. So the wise approach is not to forbid pleasure, but to place it in its proper position. Pleasure is welcome when it arrives, not demanded when it does not. Enjoyment without dependence. Gratitude without attachment. You can drink a cup of coffee and be content, but you do not need the coffee to be content. You can be with someone you love and feel joy, but you do not treat their presence as a guarantee. You do not demand that the world freeze to preserve your comfort. Mortality teaches you to hold everything lightly without becoming careless, to value without clinging, to participate without grasping, to be fully present because you understand the nature of absence. There is a quiet strength that comes from this, not the strength of someone who thinks nothing can hurt them, but the strength of someone who knows what they can lose and still remain intact. You can lose money and still remain just. You can lose status and still remain disciplined. You can lose comfort and still remain courageous. You can lose approval and still remain honest. You can lose even health and still remain dignified. What you cannot lose without becoming someone else is your own judgment. And even that is not taken by force. It is surrendered. Every time you choose bitterness over reason, you surrender it. Every time you choose panic over clarity, you surrender it. Every time you choose indulgence over self-command, you surrender it. Remembering death makes these surrenders harder to justify. Because you see the trade clearly. You see that you are exchanging the only thing that is truly yours for something temporary. Now let the mind become still for a moment. Imagine death not as a story, not as a catastrophe, but as a natural conclusion. Just as you did not choose to be born, you will not choose the moment you leave. And this is not a problem to solve. It is a fact to accept. Acceptance is not resignation. Acceptance is accuracy. From accuracy comes right action. When you accept mortality, you stop demanding that life provide you guarantees. And because you stop demanding guarantees, you become less anxious. You stop reading every uncertainty as a threat. You stop needing constant reassurance. You stop treating control as the condition for peace. Peace comes from alignment with what is. The person who remembers death stops fighting the basic structure of life. They do not waste energy on the impossible demand that nothing change. They focus on the one arena where change can be chosen, their character. So how do you live with this day to day without turning it into a gloomy obsession? You keep it simple. When you wake, you remember that this day is not owed. Not as a morbid thought, but as a sober fact. When you are tempted to waste time, you remember that time is life. When you are tempted to speak harshly, you remember that separation is real and words cannot be recalled. When you are tempted to postpone what is right, you remember that later is not guaranteed. When you are tempted to cling, you remember that clinging does not keep anything. It only disturbs your mind while you have it. When you face hardship, you remember that hardship is part of the human condition, not a personal injustice. And when you experience something good, you let yourself experience it fully, without the poison of anxiety. You say internally, this is present now. I will meet it with gratitude and restraint. This is the disciplined joy of a rational being. Not the joy of someone who believes good things will last forever. The joy of someone who can appreciate without needing permanence. Mortality also changes how you interpret your problems. Many problems shrink when placed next to death. Not because they are fake, but because you finally see their scale. A rude comment is not a crisis. A delay is not a disaster. A missed opportunity is not the end of life. Even failure, which the mind treats as a verdict, becomes simply an event you can use. If you fail, you can practice humility. You can practice perseverance. You can practice honesty. You can practice learning. If you succeed, you can practice gratitude. You can practice modesty. You can practice responsibility. In both cases, what matters is what you become. And what you become is within your control. This is why mortality is not a thief of meaning. It is the condition that makes meaning possible. If life were endless, choice would lose weight. If there were infinite days you could delay forever, you would not need to be precise. But because the days are numbered, your attention matters. Your conduct matters. Your priorities matter. And your mind can no longer pretend that everything is equally important. It must decide. So decide with reason, not with appetite, not with fear. Reason is not a cold instrument. Reason is the faculty that keeps you aligned with reality. It keeps you from calling what is indifferent good or bad in the way the crowd does. It keeps you from worshiping pleasure and fearing pain. It keeps you from living as a servant of external conditions. It returns you to the only safe ground, your own will. Now consider the moment of death itself. People imagine it with terror, but much of the terror is imagination. The event will come as events come, and you will meet it with the mind you have trained. If you spend your life avoiding the thought of death, then death will arrive as an intruder. If you spend your life remembering death calmly, then death will arrive as something familiar in its nature. Not welcome perhaps, but not shocking. You will have practiced letting go in small ways. Letting go of arguments, letting go of ego, letting go of cravings, letting go of control. And because you practice, you will not be helpless. Your last day will not be redeemed by panic. It will be shaped by the same thing that shaped all your days, your judgment. This is not about being fearless. It is about not being ruled. Fear can arise. It is a natural reaction, but you do not hand it the steering wheel. You say, this is fear. It is a feeling. It is not a command. Then you return to what is within your control to meet what is coming with dignity. Most people want death to be far away, but death is not merely at the end. It is present in the fragility of every plan. It is present in the uncertainty of every relationship. It is present in the changing of your body. The wise person does not interpret this as an insult. They interpret it as instruction. To be awake, to be moderate, to be just, to be courageous, to be honest, to use the day, not in frantic enjoyment, not in desperate achievement, but in orderly conduct. So when you think of mortality, do not ask how to feel about it. Ask how to use it. Use it to strip away what is not essential. Use it to stop performing for approval. Use it to stop postponing virtue. Use it to stop thinking that peace comes from control. Peace comes from holding only what belongs to you and releasing what never did.